Yes, we just had some short films now at the film festival. Great selection from all around the world. I've got some of the filmmakers here to talk about their films. So if you'd like to just introduce yourselves and your role and which film you just saw. Start with yourself.
My name is Dogan, and I'm the writing director of Mothers and Daughters.
My name is Daniel Keeble. I was the director of photography for the short film Nuts.
Hi, my name is Clare-Louise English, and I was the director of We Care.
And I'm Jo Sargeant, and I was the producer and production designer of We Care as well.
Great, so thank you so much for joining us. Question for each one of you. Is it the first time you've seen your film on a big screen? If it is, what's that kind of experience like for you? If it's not, do you like seeing your own work back? How do you feel about when you see your work on a big screen?
Sure. Yeah. So this is the third time I've seen my film on the big screen. Each time it gets worse. It's my first one, but it's all right. I mean, but yeah, it's nice seeing it on the big screen for sure. I mean, it just sort of, this is what it's about, I suppose. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, I've seen Nuts a couple of times on big screens. This is the biggest screen so far, which is fantastic. And as always, it is amazing to see your work on cinema screens of this size. The world that we work in, the low-budget filmmaking world, often it's just either on computer screens or TVs at home. If it is filmed at screening events, this size screens is what we're aiming for, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, same. It's the second time we've seen it on a big screen, and likewise, because obviously we use subtitles in our films, so we're doing that often on a small screen, quite up close. So quite often I'm sat at the back going, "Oh, that subtitle didn't work like that. I should have changed the colour. I should have moved it here." So it's a double-edged sword watching it, because I'm constantly thinking about what I could have done better and what I would change next time.
Yeah, exactly. And also, as a company, we started off in theatre, so it would be, live, and then it was gone. When we make film, we have something we can rewatch and have it. It's like a tangible thing that we can
pick apart later.
Exactly.
So, a question for you, Doug. Where did the inspiration for your film come about? What I loved about it was the kind of intergenerational kind of point of view of it, and how they're all intertwined and stuff. Really loved that about it. How did you get the idea?
The short answer is when I was, I think I must have been like 7 or 8 years old, and by this point we were in the UK for about 7 years. So I came when I was 1. My parents brought me here, and so my mum couldn't go back home until 2002, I think, and then my grandfather died 3 years before that. She got a phone call, and got the news, and I think I just remember a very clear image of her just breaking down and crying. And it was more the fact that she couldn't go back for the funeral, because we were still in limbo with our immigration status. So yeah, that's where the image of that sort of stuck in my head. And then eventually, when I decided to become a filmmaker, I sort of used that as a catalyst to develop this story. The long answer is that immigrant mothers and daughters. I have 2 sisters, so that's sort of my research. Is that it's a very complicated relationship, because there was a lot of expectation for us to try and achieve, while also being bogged down by sometimes very conservative ideas of what, especially with my sisters, what they're expected to be like, what they're expected to do, and so on and so forth. So
that really came really strongly across to me.
That's good.
Can I ask, where did your mother come from?
Oh yeah, so we're Turkish.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting because my mum has a very mixed views on life. So she's a very staunch Republican in Turkey, so that means very strong secular values. But at the same time, she grew up with this very conservative set of values. So even, it's quite funny, I think after we wrapped on the film, about 3 weeks later, my younger sister, who's 24, and my mum had a shouting match about my sister leaving home. And my mum was like, "If you leave, you're a fucking whore," basically. That was the gist of it. Although she regrets saying that, and they've patched things up, but she just has these sort of knee-jerk reactions to what my sisters can and can't do, and I basically can get away with murder, unfortunately. So.
Just another question for yourself. Then I think sound and music was so powerful. It's always some kind of theme of music going through that. How did you choose the music? How did you kind of approach the music?
So I think we shot the film twice because the first time I shot it didn't really work. So the second time I shot it, it worked a little better. And I think I used music quite a lot more than I wanted to, just to sort of like make an emotional story rather than one that's very clearly plot driven, because it didn't really work plot wise. If for like a clear action reaction sort of like scene by scene film. So I try to use music to sort of carry on the emotional journey of the mother and the daughter to where hopefully the film made sense more on an emotional level. So using, sound design, using music, using visuals as much as possible to make a statement that is, as clear as I could anyway. So that was the reason behind it. And the Iona, the composer, who is an absolute genius, like I'll give her a brief, she'd come back the next day with all I needed, and she works incredibly quickly. So if anyone needs a composer, do give Iona a shout. She's amazing. But yeah, I sort of gave her an idea of what to sort of do, and then she would come back with something that pretty much fitted the brief. But yeah,
Amazing stuff. Is it all original music?
oh yeah, all original, yeah.
Brilliant. Daniel, so how did you first get involved with Nuts?
Dave, the director, Dave Gardner, approached Arc Pictures, film indie company in Southend-on-Sea, to help produce his short film. He's done a short film before. He wanted a bit more help because it was a bigger production. So we were honoured to be able to support his idea. He had the script, a fantastic script he wrote, a personal story for him, and we helped him cast it, crew it up. I filmed it, and that's how I got involved. Not as a producer per se, because I'm one of the directors for Arc Pictures, but Alice Ryan produced it with Dave, but I handled the cinematography element of the film. So yeah.
As a cinematographer, what was your greatest challenge on this film?
I knew you were going to ask me this, and I had no answer because there was no huge challenges, because Dave did so much groundwork with regards to how he wanted the film to look. He storyboarded it out with animations, and we discussed certain scenes and the certain shots. And it was a very basic looking film, and that's all it needed, because I was going for some sort of Coen Brothers type of vibe. Wide close-ups, lots of colour, cameras moving a lot to move with the action, and it's static towards the end when it gets a bit more emotional in the story. But there was no huge challenges, really. Quite straightforward.
Is it unusual to work with a director who's already done all that kind of prep work?
It's not unusual. It's not every director has a different approach. It is really helpful if a director has a vision, but it's also great if they don't have a vision or a particular style that they're aiming for, and then we can collaborate to get the look they want. And we had very similar tastes in style, and we like the same sort of films anyway, so we worked well together to get the look that he wanted.
Yeah, so you mentioned Coen Brothers, so that was the kind of thing you were going for, that kind of tone. Any other things that you considered?
There's a couple of David Lynch type shots in the film, but that's about it, really. Yeah.
So Clare-Louise and Joe, how did this project first come into being? We Care.
Well, we were inspired by Alan Bennett's Talking Heads. Over lockdown, I think they re-filmed them. They're obviously quite old now, but they were re-filmed over lockdown. And we watched them and we thought, they're great. They're a little bit more up to date, but there's a huge part of society missing, namely deaf disabled people. So we were like, okay, we'll do our version of Talking Heads. All deaf disabled led stories. So that's the kind of initial idea. And then we took a big group of deaf and disabled people through a kind of script development process, where people came to us with either a first draft or like little nuclei of an idea, And then we took them through this process and worked with dramaturgs and other directors to get them to kind of final draft. And it was about 12 people, I think.
Yeah, 12 writers in total.
And then we got down to sort of the last 7 that we decided to take on, and we're going to create them as a collection is the idea. And we just shot the first 2 last summer, and that was one of them. So that's quite,
Yeah, that's it. That's happening.
You touched briefly on the kind of use of subtitles there. Can you tell us a bit more about your decision to do that? Because obviously there's not a usual standard industry thing, but I know there is a lot of people who, like yourselves, kind of advocate for that now. What was your decision behind that?
I'd say it's a standard hot coals thing, as in our production company, because we work within deaf disabled led work. We want to level the playing field for deaf and hearing audiences to enjoy work together, and subtitles are becoming more normalised anyway, because of course young people are watching everything with subtitles on now. So we want to make it part of the creative vision rather than have it from the beginning. So Claire brilliantly was thinking about how to set up a shot. So where will the subtitles be, so that it's aesthetically part of the creation, and working with me as the designer as well, looking at colour palettes and things like that, and also thinking about whether they're accessible to neurodivergent audience members as well, because obviously that can be a big impact.
Yeah, we want to make them part of the storytelling tool, as opposed to that thing that you have to bolt on at the end because the whatever festival asks you to, or the BFI asks you to. It's like we want to make it integrated into the story, and another layer of storytelling. So we look at, as Joe was saying, the colour, the way they appear on screen, where they are in the frame, the font, what all those different parts of it that we can use to add to the story. But we learnt quite a lot with this one. There was quite a few moments when I was like, okay, so we need much more kind of neutral background. But there were some shots that I would do quite differently now, having gone through the process in the edit. But you can only do that as you learn as you go, I guess.
Exactly. I think I got a little overzealous with set dressing as well. I was like, oh, I can put that there, and I should have just held back a bit. But as we made 2 at them, within the same space of time, we were able to take that learning into the other one as well. So every time they get a little bit more successful.
Do you want to talk about casting your film first?
Well, it casts itself really, because the writer is the performer.
Right.
So it was her story and her baby really. So
and she's such an insanely talented performer that it couldn't be performed by anybody else. It really couldn't.
I think we entertained the idea of auditioning for about 5 minutes, and then we're like, no, it needs to be Steph.
And I played Susie at the beginning because we didn't need him. It made logic.
Daniel, did you have any involvement in the casting? Or was
I
it-
did actually, surprisingly enough. Not a huge part of it all. David and Alice did the casting call-outs, and they had a long list of fantastic actors. I was kind of there when they were going through all the different actors, and some of the actors were so good, but they needed to have a good relationship. The brother and the sister had to work convincingly. So that's why Emily and John were cast as those characters. And then we needed an actor to play this nut kicker character. Yeah. He needed to have a great presence, needed to be physically able to do what was needed, but he couldn't look too big, too muscular. And we had a great actor in mind for this part. His name's Billy Herring. He's such an amazing actor anyway, and he did a fantastic job. This was filmed in August. It was a really hot few days, and he was just covered up. Even his face was covered all day, every day, and he didn't complain once. He did a fantastic job. So, the whole cast. And casting's really important in any film production, and I think we got it right then.
Derkan, how do you go about casting your film?
So the mother's my mum.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was easy.
That's a lot more meta now.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dilek, my cousin, the daughter is Dilek, my cousin. She's a great sort of theatre actress, and so I approached the idea with her, and she said, yeah, she'll do it, which was great. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
What part of the film or process are you most proud about, each one of you? We'll start with
The process from start to finish. Sorry. I suppose the editing was quite fun. So I edited it myself with someone else. They did the initial edit and I sort of like tightened it up. So yeah, the editing was a real sort of learning experience of, okay, this is how I should have done this, is how I should have done that, and then you sort of try to make compromises and try to make it work. So I think the editing was a good learning experience more than the previous, even production and pre-production. So yeah.
The scene that I'm most proud of in the Nuts film is the first time the second time he gets kicked in the nuts. He goes through a tunnel, and all of that, the logistics of that scene took a long time to figure out how to make it work, finding the location, how to shoot it, and we found the location, obviously, but just how it ended up looking and the angles that I was shooting from above as well, how that all turned out was exactly how Dave wanted it to be, and it works for the story, so that's what I'm most proud of in Nuts.
Well, there were a few sort of camera choice things that I felt quite good about doing, but really I think mainly Steph's performance, and I mean obviously I don't take credit, maybe just a tiny bit for that, but mainly that was her. But I think she just does a fantastic kind of sensitive performance, and I'm proud of kind of the whole crew really for the way that we handled quite a delicate, difficult story very sensitively and created a very kind of safe space for Steph to be able to do her best performance, and I think she does really great.
Yeah, I'd say also the fact that for these films, the crew, everyone behind the camera, is 99% deaf disabled led. So nearly the entire crew were deaf disabled or neurodivergent, and the entire environment of creating these films with that crew gave a sort of an empathy from behind the camera as well, and it gave such authenticity, and the environment of actually making these films was incredible, because we all just wanted to make amazing films, and we all understood each other's access needs, and we had an access coordinator, and the access coordinator was amazing. Kelsey, she's brilliant. So I just felt that the whole process of making We Care was, sensitive with the subject matter, but also joyful with everybody involved.
We made We Care with a lot of care.
Yes, we made We Care with a lot of care.
Love a punchline.
what are you guys all working on next? What's your next project? Could you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm developing a short film about 2 Syrian refugees in a flat, and the idea, it's basically a ghost story, and we sort of follow their domestic drama. The idea of the film is that we reveal in the end that they're actually in Grenfell, on the eve of the fire. So we're working very closely with the community, getting their support, casting locally as well. So we've already got one of the main leads, who's a Syrian guy. Also, he was a refugee. So yeah, that's what I'm working on next.
I'm working on several sort of film projects at the moment. Shot a new short film a couple of weeks ago for ARC, which I wrote and directed. It's got a dark, chilling story, which no doubt I might submit to you guys next year if you allow it. We're filming another short film in 2 weeks' time, and another one in August, which is the biggest film project I've worked on. So we're raising money for that, and we've got a couple of feature films on the line on the go as well. So I'm in a really good creative bubble at the moment, and it's exciting, but yeah, much to come, I think.
We've got quite a lot in the pipeline. So we've got, I guess, the rest of this collection. So that'll be 5 more short films to finish the collection. Then we've got one feature that we're writing together, and one feature that is kind of in the works that I would direct and Joe would produce. And then I guess we've got some TV things as well.
We've got a couple of TV projects. We're co-producing a TV series, crime TV series with Yellowbird UK, which is very exciting. It's an adaptation of a series of novels, which would be probably about 50% deaf cast in it, because it's set within the deaf community. And we're also co-writing, because Claire and I write together as well, we're co-writing a comedy drama for 5 Acts, which is an ITV Studios production company. So, yeah, got lots of irons in the fire at the moment.
Great stuff. Great to hear that you're also busy and got so many great ideas in the pipe. Thank you so much for submitting your films. Congratulations for making them in the first place. They're all wonderful.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us. Can we have a round of applause, please, for our